Now, the construction mafia continues to disrupt projects in Cape Town. The Western Cape Property Development Forum believes it's targeting projects in disadvantaged areas. Those who've won tenders, as well as workers, have been attacked. Let's speak to Deon Van Zyl from the Development Forum. Mr. Van Zyl, good morning and thank you very much for your time. You know, reports of a construction mafia now operating in Cape Town is quite worrying because it suggests the problems of these forums are now spreading to all parts of the country, because we had been reporting on these for the most part in KZN. Just talk to us about these mafias here, just even a brief background, roughly when the mafias started operating in the city.
So, good morning, Fonda, and to your viewers as well. Look, the construction mafia is a very loose term that is being used to try and define the ongoing site invasions that we've seen. Now, let's start with the basics. The basics is we've got to understand the context within which this is playing out. The construction industry has shrunk 25% over the last 5 years. The major reason for the shrinkage in the construction industry is at the door of government, all three spheres of government, national, provincial, and local, that have not been spending their capital budgets. Right? So the people or the entities that should be keeping the construction industry very busy is the state primarily, and then supported by private sector projects. Now, the state has not been performing, and therefore you've got thousands of labor and artisans sitting at home. Mm-hmm. Now, the construction mafia started off with people desperate for opportunities, starting to knock on contractors' doors and expecting participation. Now, participation should also be split into two categories. Public sector tenders in the past have called on material supplies, 30% local content. On paper, that's not a problem. But when you end up with a white goods type of scenario where people procure from other people and just add a margin onto existing projects or products, then you get an incredible inflationary impact. So that is one side of the coin, is people wanting to supply materials onto site. And then the second aspect, of course, relates to labor. So this originally started in KZN with site invasions down there. It started off, I think, based on people's desperate needs to participate in the economy, shrinking in a construction industry, and people having skills to sell and they couldn't sell it. It is now spread into other parts of the country, and we've got to call it as it is. There are two components. There are definitely people desperate for participation, but there is also a fundamental criminal aspect to this. Mm-hmm. So what you're now starting to see is criminal role players abusing people desperate for jobs and opportunities and trying to play a middleman role. And that is what you're starting to see in the Cape Town specifically now. Now, we've also got to talk about public sector projects being invaded versus public or private sector. And I think in what we've seen thus far...
Before we get to that, Deon, apologies for interjecting. I just wanted to find out, insofar as the shrinking of the economy or the sector is concerned, could we also attribute it to COVID? Because there was a lot of stoppages there. At that time, nothing was moving on the construction front, if we all remember. So could we, to a certain extent, attribute what we're seeing now a bit to COVID?
Fonda, the construction industry is a slow-moving animal, right? It takes years to package a project. The construction component is actually the short part of any project life cycle. It's only the last third to 25% of a project. So if you say that we should consider attributing some of this to COVID, then I would say yes, in a year's time, because there was a lot of planning that was stalled during COVID, but projects that were in pipelines continued. The Western Cape Property Development Forum is privileged to be part of a structure called CASA, Construction Alliance South Africa, and I think you've hosted them previously on the show as well. Now, CASA was created to open construction sites, and I'm proud to say we were very successful. The actual site closure component was a relatively short period within the COVID time. We were successful, and credit to government also coming to the party on this. So no, the shrinkage of the construction industry is primarily attributable to the fact that the public sector has not been awarding contracts as they should. We are not seeing enough schools being constructed. We are not seeing enough hospitals being constructed. And we are definitely not seeing enough housing projects constructed. Those are not private sector projects. Those are public sector projects. And the pipeline, the production pipeline, was ongoing. So there is really no excuse. So where we're sitting now is, for any country in the world, your construction sector is an incredibly strategic asset. And if you don't keep the construction industry busy, then people go elsewhere. They go and find other jobs, and people don't come back to the construction industry. So we are very, very concerned about the health of both the civil and the building construction industry in South Africa. And a large part of the criticism deservedly should be placed in front of the door of national government, Treasury, and also the Auditor General, who has really made it nearly impossible for local governments, provincial governments, to actually award tenders. So we have a procurement crisis in the country. But that is the origin. And add to that, of course, the dire economic situation. We've just read about the effective drop in the economy of 1.3%. Yeah, there's some good signs on job creation, but that's all attributable to the growth in the tourism industry. We need to get contractors busy. Construction is arguably the quickest way of getting money to the poorest of the poor. We employ labor on sites. Those are incredibly important people. We can't build without labor, but we are not keeping our labor busy. And if you want to get money to the poorest of the poor, have people building things. So, yeah, I mean, we're talking about the construction mafia, but that gives you the context within which this level of opportunism is now playing out. There are desperate people who need to be employed, who want to be employed, and you've got criminal middlemen who are now targeting sites and trying to kill the last little bit of blood flowing through the arteries of the industry. It's very, very concerning.
Most certainly concerning. Let's hope that the city, at the very least, in this respect, will be able to respond adequately. That was Deon Van Zyl, the chair of the Western Cape Property Development Forum.